Most people think getting rich is loud. They imagine dramatic breakthroughs, viral moments, risky bets that suddenly pay off. They imagine fast money. And that belief is exactly why most people stay broke. Because real wealth is quiet. It's built in boring mornings, in decisions no one applauds, in habits that don't look impressive until years later. If you feel overwhelmed by money, if you feel like no matter how hard you work, you're always behind, if you've chased opportunity after opportunity and still feel stuck, this audiobook is for you. Because wealth is not built by doing more. It's built by doing less, consistently. In this audiobook, Simple Way to Get Rich, you're going to learn why simplicity beats complexity, why patience outperforms brilliance, and why most people fail financially not because they're incapable, but because they've been taught the wrong game. And here's the first truth you need to hear. You don't get rich by chasing more, you get rich by needing less. That sentence alone can change your life, if you let it. We live in a world that profits from your confusion. Every ad tells you you're missing something. Every platform pushes comparison. Every trend whispers that you're behind. Hang on a sec. Hey there, write in the comments what you'd like us to talk about in the next video. We promise to read all the comments and pick the best and most relevant topics. Thanks. So you spend, you upgrade, you chase status disguised as success. And slowly, the gap between what you earn and what you keep disappears. Most people don't fail financially because they don't earn enough. They fail because they never learn to control the gap between income and expenses, the gap between impulse and intention, the gap between today's pleasure and tomorrow's freedom. This audiobook is not about shortcuts, it's about leverage. And leverage doesn't come from complexity. It comes from clarity. We're going to strip wealth down to its bones. No hype, no jargon, no fantasy timelines. Just principles that work, even when motivation fades. Here's the roadmap you're about to walk. You'll learn why wealth is a mindset before it's a number, why debt is not just financial, but psychological, why boring investments beat exciting ones, why consistency destroys luck over time, why freedom matters more than income, and how to design a life where money stops being a source of fear. This is not financial advice. This is education, a way of thinking. Because once you think differently about money, your behavior changes. And behavior is everything. Let's get something clear early. Being rich does not mean living extravagantly. It means living optionally. It means being able to say no. It means sleeping without anxiety. It means walking away from situations that drain your soul. That level of freedom doesn't require genius. It requires discipline. And discipline doesn't come from willpower. It comes from simplicity. The wealthy don't win because they know secrets. They win because they follow boring rules longer than everyone else. Rules like spend less than you earn, avoid bad debt, invest consistently, ignore noise, let time do the heavy lifting. That's it. No mystery, just patience. But patience is uncomfortable in a world addicted to immediacy. And that's why this path feels lonely at first. You'll feel like you're missing out, like others are moving faster, like your progress is invisible, until one day it isn't. Until one day you realize something quietly radical. You don't need more money. You need fewer leaks. You don't need luck. You need time, uninterrupted by bad decisions. And once you understand that, wealth stops feeling far away. It starts feeling inevitable. Before we go any further, pause for a moment. Ask yourself this: if nothing changed in how you handle money for the next 10 years, where would you end up? That answer matters, because wealth doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to patterns. And in the next chapter, we're going to confront the most important pattern of all: the way you think about money before you ever touch it. Because before wealth shows up in your bank account, it shows up in your mind. And that's where everything begins. Chapter 2. Money is a behavior, not a number. Most people think money problems are math problems. They're not. They're behavior problems. If money were just math, anyone with a calculator would be wealthy. But you already know that's not true. Two people can earn the same income, live in the same city, have the same opportunities, and end up in completely different financial realities. One feels trapped. The other feels free. The difference is not intelligence, it's behavior, and behavior comes from belief. Most people grow up believing money is emotional. Something to celebrate, something to fear, something to show off, something to escape with. So they treat money emotionally. They spend when they're stressed. They upgrade when they're insecure. They avoid numbers when they feel ashamed. And slowly, silently, money becomes a source of pressure instead of power. Wealthy people treat money differently. They treat it like a tool, not a reward, not a status symbol, not a coping mechanism, a tool. And tools are meant to be used intentionally. Here's a truth that may feel uncomfortable at first. How you spend your money reveals how you regulate your emotions. Impulse spending is rarely about desire. It's about relief. Relief from boredom. Relief from comparison. Relief from anxiety. This is why most budgets fail. They attack numbers without addressing behavior. They try to restrict spending without understanding why spending happens. Wealth begins when awareness replaces denial. When you stop asking, "How can I make more money?" and start asking, "Why do I spend the money I already have?" That question alone changes everything. Because once behavior changes, numbers follow naturally. Let's talk about simplicity. The wealthy simplify not because they lack ambition, but because complexity creates friction. Every subscription you don't need, every impulse purchase, every lifestyle upgrade is friction. Friction slows wealth. Simplicity accelerates it. The rich understand this intuitively. They don't chase happiness through spending. They chase peace through margin. Margin between income and expenses. Margin between effort and obligation. Margin between want and need. Margin creates breathing room. Breathing room creates clarity. Clarity leads to better decisions. Better decisions compound. And compounding is the real engine of wealth. Here's another truth rarely discussed. Getting rich is mostly about avoiding mistakes, not making perfect moves. Avoiding high-interest debt, lifestyle inflation, emotional spending, overconfidence, complexity disguised as sophistication. Most people don't need higher returns. They need fewer self-inflicted wounds. Every bad financial decision steals time, and time is the only non-renewable asset. You can earn more money. You cannot earn more years. This is why the simple path works. It protects time. Simple investing protects you from panic. Simple spending protects you from regret. Simple rules protect you from yourself. Wealth is not about doing extraordinary things once. It's about doing ordinary things for an extraordinary length of time. That requires systems, not motivation. Lucky months don't build wealth. Boring years do. If this is resonating, pause later and reflect on it. Or write down one spending habit that has nothing to do with necessity and everything to do with emotion. Awareness is the first form of control. Now here's where this becomes powerful. When you simplify your financial life, stress decreases. When stress decreases, decision-making improves. When decisions improve, wealth accelerates. This is not theory. This is human psychology. The less mental energy you waste managing chaos, the more energy you have for growth. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about the most dangerous illusion in modern finance, why debt feels normal, and why normal is the fastest path to financial captivity. This is where many people lose decades without realizing it. And once you see it clearly, you'll never look at borrowing the same way again. Chapter 3. Mott, write which city you're from. It's interesting to see which corners of the world are watching our videos. Chapter 3. Debt, the quiet thief of time. Debt doesn't feel dangerous at first. It feels helpful, convenient, normal. Everyone has it. Everyone uses it. Everyone justifies it. And that's exactly why it's so powerful. Debt doesn't steal your money first. It steals your future. Every dollar you owe tomorrow limits the choices you can make today. You stay in jobs you dislike. You tolerate stress you shouldn't. You postpone risks that could change your life, not because you're weak, but because debt has removed your margin. Here's the truth, rarely spoken clearly. Debt turns income into obligation. You don't earn for yourself anymore. You earn for yesterday's decisions. And the more normalized debt becomes, the harder it is to see how deeply it controls behavior. People say, I'll pay it off later. But later becomes years. Years become habits. Habits become identity. And suddenly, living paycheck to paycheck feels inevitable. Wealthy people are not anti-debt because they're afraid. They're anti-debt because they value flexibility. Flexibility to wait. Flexibility to say no. Flexibility to invest instead of consume. Debt removes flexibility. It locks you into needing constant income. And needing constant income is the opposite of freedom. Now let's be clear. Not all debt is equal, but all debt has a cost. And that cost is not just interest. It's stress. Stress narrows thinking. Narrow thinking leads to reactive decisions. Reactive decisions keep people trapped. The simple path to wealth avoids this trap not through extreme sacrifice, but through restraint. Restraint is misunderstood. It's not deprivation, it's delayed consumption. Wealthy people delay what others demand immediately. They don't buy lifestyles they haven't earned. They don't finance pleasure. They don't borrow to feel successful. They let time do the heavy lifting. Here's a powerful reframe. Every dollar you don't owe is a dollar that can work for you. Every dollar you owe is a dollar that works against you. That's it. No complexity. Debt compounds negatively. Interest doesn't just add, it accelerates. And while your investments are trying to grow slowly, your obligations are growing relentlessly. This imbalance quietly destroys progress. Most people don't fail financially because they lack opportunity. They fail because their future is already spoken for. Debt pre-spends your time. That's why paying it off feels like relief. Relief is the signal you're regaining control. The simple path prioritizes clean foundations. Before investing aggressively, before chasing returns, before optimizing strategies, you remove what's dragging you backward. You simplify. And simplicity creates momentum. Let's talk about psychology. Debt creates background anxiety. Even when you're not thinking about it, your nervous system feels it. That anxiety pushes people toward safer decisions, smaller risks, short-term thinking. And wealth requires the opposite, long-term thinking, calm decision-making, patience. Debt undermines all three. This is why wealthy people are boring with money. They avoid drama. They avoid leverage they don't need. They don't build castles on unstable ground. They build slowly, but solidly. If this is landing, pause later and ask yourself, which part of my income is already promised to the past? That question isn't meant to shame. It's meant to clarify, because clarity is the beginning of change. In the next chapter, we're going to shift from protection to construction. How simple investing, done consistently, outperforms complex strategies chased emotionally. This is where time becomes your ally instead of your enemy. And once that relationship changes, wealth stops feeling fragile. Chapter 4. Simple investing beats exciting strategies. Most people don't lose money because they choose bad investments. They lose money because they can't stay consistent. They chase excitement. They chase stories. They chase what feels smart in the moment. And excitement is the enemy of wealth. Wealth is built through repetition, not adrenaline. Simple investing works because it removes emotion from the process. No constant decisions, no dramatic swings, no obsession with timing, just steady contribution over time. The wealthy don't try to outsmart the market. They outlast it. They understand that markets reward patience more than intelligence. This is why simple, diversified investing, done consistently, quietly beats complex strategies chased emotionally. Complexity creates decision fatigue. Decision fatigue leads to hesitation. Hesitation leads to missed time. And time is the most powerful force in wealth creation. The simple path embraces one uncomfortable truth. You don't need to be right often. You need to be right for a long time. Friend, write your opinion on this topic in the comments. Do you agree with us or not? I'm interested to hear your thoughts. That's it. Small, regular investments compound not because they're clever, but because they stay invested. Most people interrupt compounding. They pull out during fear. They chase during greed. They abandon plans during boredom. Wealthy people do none of that. They automate. Automation protects you from yourself. It removes emotion from the equation. Emotion is unpredictable. Systems are stable. Stable systems build wealth. Here's another truth. The biggest threat to long-term investing is not market crashes. It's impatience. People underestimate how long wealth takes and overestimate how much action is required. The simple path teaches restraint. It teaches you to let time work, to let compounding do what no human effort can replicate. Compound growth doesn't feel powerful day to day. It feels invisible until one day it doesn't. This invisibility is why most people quit early. They want proof now. Wealth rewards those who don't need proof immediately. This is not optimism. It's math aligned with behavior. Simple investing works because it matches human psychology. It reduces stress. It minimizes regret. It encourages consistency. Consistency beats intensity every time. Let me say that again. Consistency beats intensity. This applies to saving, to investing, to wealth building as a whole. If this is resonating, pause later and reflect. Are you trying to be clever with money or consistent? One builds ego. The other builds freedom. In the next chapter, we'll explore lifestyle inflation, the invisible force that cancels raises, promotions, and windfalls. This is where many people make more money, and still go nowhere. And once you see it clearly, you'll understand why wealth isn't about income at all. Chapter 5. Lifestyle. Inflation, the silent wealth killer. Most people think earning more money will solve their financial problems. It rarely does, because the problem was never income. It was lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation is subtle. You don't notice it happening. A slightly better apartment, a newer car, more frequent dining out, upgraded subscriptions, convenience everywhere. Each change feels justified. I earn this. I work hard. I deserve comfort. And individually, none of these decisions seem dangerous. But together, they erase progress. Raises disappear. Bonuses vanish. Windfalls evaporate. Not because you were irresponsible, but because your lifestyle grew faster than your freedom. Here's the hard truth. If your expenses rise with your income, you will never feel wealthy. You'll feel busy. You'll feel pressured. You'll feel dependent, but not free. Wealthy people resist lifestyle inflation aggressively, not because they're cheap, but because they understand trade-offs. Every upgrade costs more than money. It costs optionality, the ability to walk away, the ability to wait, the ability to say no. Luxury feels good in the moment, but optionality feels good forever. Wealth is not about how high your income goes. It's about how low your required income can be. That difference determines everything. Most people design a life that requires constant income. Wealthy people design a life that can survive interruption. That's the difference between stress and peace. Here's a line to remember. Freedom comes from controlling your fixed costs, not your desires, not your ambitions, your fixed costs. The simple path focuses relentlessly on this. You don't eliminate joy. You eliminate unnecessary obligation. You don't remove pleasure. You remove dependence. This creates margin. Margin gives you power. With margin, you invest without panic. You weather downturns. You choose long-term gains over short-term relief. Without margin, every setback feels catastrophic. Every decision feels urgent. Every opportunity feels risky. Most people don't realize they're trapped until they try to slow down. Then they discover they can't. The wealthy can slow down anytime. That ability alone is worth more than status. Here's another uncomfortable truth. Many people spend money to avoid feeling behind. Behind socially, behind professionally, behind culturally. Comparison drives consumption. Consumption drives obligation. Obligation kills wealth. Wealthy people opt out of comparison early. They don't try to win games that don't matter. They don't compete on appearances. They compete on independence. Independence compounds quietly. No one claps for it. But one day, people ask how you did it. And the answer is always the same. I kept my life simple while others made it expensive. If this is hitting home, pause later and reflect. Which expense in your life exists to impress someone else or soothe a feeling? That awareness alone can save you years. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about time, the most underestimated asset in wealth building. Why starting early matters more than earning more, and why patience is not passive. It's strategic. This is where simplicity meets inevitability. Chapter 6. Time, the wealth multiplier no one respects. If you appreciate our efforts and our thoughts, subscribe and like this video. We need to show the world that there are many people like us. We must always continue to improve. Most people underestimate time. They think wealth is about effort, or intelligence, or opportunity. It's not. Wealth is about how long you let good decisions work. Time is the multiplier. And like all multipliers, it only works if you don't interrupt it. The biggest advantage wealthy people have is not higher income. It's that they start earlier, and they don't stop. They understand something most people never internalize. The first years don't look impressive. The last years don't look believable. Compounding is slow before it's unstoppable. That's why impatience destroys more wealth than bad investments ever will. People quit too early. They save for a few months, then stop. They invest for a year, then panic. They plan for the long term, then abandon it for short-term comfort. Time never gets a chance to work. Wealth is built by people who stay boring longer than others stay excited. Let's be clear. Starting early doesn't mean being young. It means starting now. The best time to plant a tree was years ago. The second best time is today. What matters is not when you begin, but whether you stay consistent. Here's something powerful. Every dollar invested early is worth more than dollars invested later. Not because it's smarter, but because it has more time to compound. Time rewards patience. It punishes delay. Most people delay because they feel behind. Ironically, delay is what keeps them behind. The simple path teaches humility. You accept that wealth takes time. You stop rushing. You stop comparing. You stop trying to catch up. Instead, you build forward, slowly, relentlessly. This mindset removes pressure. Pressure causes mistakes. Calm builds wealth. Time also smooths volatility. Markets rise and fall. Economies shift. Trends come and go. Time absorbs shocks. People who stay invested through cycles benefit from recovery. People who panic lock in losses. Wealth is not built by avoiding downturns, it's built by surviving them. Time turns volatility into opportunity, but only if you're still present. Here's another truth. Time does not forgive inconsistency. Missing years cannot be replaced. That's why the simple path emphasizes automation. You don't rely on motivation, you rely on systems. Systems show up even when you don't feel like it. Systems protect you during boredom. Boredom is dangerous. It makes people seek excitement. Excitement leads to impulsive decisions. Impulsive decisions interrupt compounding. Wealthy people embrace boredom. They understand that boredom is the sound of things working quietly. If this resonates, pause later and ask yourself, what decision could I make today that would benefit from years of repetition? That's where wealth begins. In the next chapter, we'll talk about income, not how to chase it, but how to use it correctly. Because earning more only matters if you don't sabotage it. And once you understand that relationship, money stops controlling you. Chapter 7. Income. How to use more without losing control. Most people think the goal is to earn more money, climb faster, hustle harder. But income alone has never made anyone wealthy. Control is what makes income powerful. Without control, higher income simply means higher stress. Wealthy people don't worship income, they respect it. They understand income is a tool, not a trophy, and tools must be handled correctly. Here's the mistake most people make. When income increases, they celebrate by upgrading their lifestyle. New expenses appear immediately. The raise never touches freedom. It disappears into comfort. Wealthy people treat increased income differently. They pretend it doesn't exist at first. They let their systems absorb it. Savings increase, investments grow, debt disappears. Only later, if at all, does lifestyle change. This delay is everything. Delayed gratification is not punishment. It's leverage. The faster you inflate your lifestyle, the slower your freedom grows. Income should first reduce fragility. It should buy margin. Margin between obligation and desire. That margin gives you power. Power to choose better opportunities. Power to wait. Power to walk away. Wealthy people understand that income volatility is dangerous. They avoid building lives that depend on peak earning years. They plan for consistency, not intensity. This is why simple careers, boring businesses, and steady growth often beat flashy paths. Flash attracts attention. Consistency builds security. Security builds freedom. There's another layer here. Wealthy people increase income strategically, not randomly. They focus on skills that compound, skills that increase over time, scale without burnout, create optionality. They don't chase money directly. They build value. Value attracts income naturally. Chasing income creates desperation. Desperation leads to bad decisions. Bad decisions erase progress. The simple path focuses on sustainability. You don't need the highest income. You need income you can keep. Income you can manage. Income that doesn't demand your soul. Here's a powerful reframe. The best income stream is the one that doesn't force you to spend it. Stress-driven income often comes with stress-driven spending. Calm income supports calm decisions. Calm decisions build wealth. Wealthy people protect their nervous system. They don't overload themselves chasing every dollar. They choose paths that allow long-term thinking, because long-term thinking is where wealth lives. If this resonates, pause later and reflect. If your income doubled tomorrow, would your life become freer or more expensive? That answer reveals your system, and systems determine outcomes. In the next chapter, we'll talk about freedom, the real reason money matters at all. Not luxury, not status. Freedom. And once you define it clearly, every financial decision becomes easier. Chapter 8. Freedom. The real reason you want money. Please like and subscribe if you want a better future for your children, your family, and yourself. It's very difficult to achieve success today, but I'm sure you'll succeed. All you have to do is learn and discover new things. Strip everything else away, and there's only one reason money matters. Freedom. Not yachts, not luxury watches, not applause. Freedom. Freedom to choose your time. Freedom to protect your energy. Freedom to walk away without fear. Most people confuse wealth with consumption. They think freedom looks like buying more, but buying more often creates more obligation, more payments, more maintenance, more pressure. Wealthy people understand something subtle. True freedom comes from reducing dependence, not increasing indulgence. Dependence on income, dependence on employers, dependence on appearances, dependence on constant growth. The simple path to wealth is actually the simple path to freedom. You design a life that costs less than you earn, comfortably. That gap becomes power. With power, you gain options. Options are the currency of freedom. When you have options, you don't rush decisions, you don't tolerate disrespect, you don't stay stuck out of fear. Most people feel trapped not because they lack ambition, but because their financial structure demands constant compliance. Wealth removes that demand. Here's an important realization. Freedom is not a finish line. It's a gradient. Every dollar saved, every expense reduced, every investment compounded, each step gives you slightly more control. And control feels better than luxury ever could. Wealthy people define freedom personally, not by someone else's standards. They ask, how much is enough? What kind of life do I want to protect? What trade-offs am I willing to make? Those answers guide every decision. Without clarity, money becomes noise. With clarity, money becomes a servant. This is why the simple path emphasizes intentional living. You don't chase money blindly. You align money with values. Alignment creates peace. Peace supports long-term thinking. Long-term thinking builds wealth. There's another side to freedom. Freedom is knowing your worst-case scenario and being okay with it. Wealthy people prepare for downside. They don't live in fear of it. Preparation removes anxiety. Anxiety drives bad decisions. The simple path removes anxiety through preparation, emergency funds, low fixed costs, diversified investments. These aren't exciting. They're stabilizing. Stability is underrated. Stability allows patience. Patience allows compounding. Compounding creates wealth. If this resonates, pause later and ask yourself, if your income stopped tomorrow, how long could you live comfortably? That answer reveals how much freedom you already have and how much you still want. In the next chapter, we'll bring everything together. How simplicity, discipline, patience, and clarity combine into a system that works quietly over decades. This is where the simple way becomes inevitable. Chapter 9. The system that makes wealth inevitable. At this point, something should be clear. Wealth is not built by motivation. It's built by systems. Motivation fades. Systems remain. The simple way to get rich is not a single decision. It's a structure you live inside. A structure that works even when you're tired, distracted, or uncertain. Wealthy people don't rely on discipline alone. They design their lives so discipline is rarely required. Money moves automatically. Investments happen on schedule. Spending has boundaries. This removes friction. Friction kills progress. The simpler the system, the harder it is to break. Here's what an inevitable system looks like. You earn income. A fixed percentage is automatically saved or invested. Expenses are capped below your means. Lifestyle stays stable as income grows. Time does the rest. That's it. No constant decisions, no daily willpower battles, no emotional negotiations, just flow. This system works because it respects human psychology. It doesn't assume perfection. It assumes inconsistency and designs around it. Most people fail financially because they expect themselves to behave rationally all the time. Wealthy people assume they won't, so they automate. Automation protects progress. Here's another key. Wealthy people review their system, not obsess over it. They check in periodically. They adjust when needed. They don't micromanage daily fluctuations. Micromanagement creates anxiety. Anxiety leads to interference. Interference interrupts compounding. The simple path trusts the system. Trust reduces stress. Reduced stress improves decision-making everywhere else in life. Wealth becomes a side effect of a well-designed life. There's something else happening here. When your financial system is stable, your identity shifts. You stop feeling reactive. You stop feeling behind. You stop feeling pressured. You start thinking long-term. Long-term thinking spills into career choices, relationships, health, time management. Wealth becomes integrated, not isolated. This integration is powerful. Money stops being the center of your life. It becomes infrastructure, invisible, reliable, supportive. That's real success. Most people want visible wealth. Wealthy people want invisible stability. Invisible stability allows visible freedom. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to rush. You don't need to compare. Your system is working, even when nothing dramatic is happening. That's the paradox. When wealth is being built correctly, it feels almost boring. But boring is safe, and safe allows time. Time allows compounding. Compounding creates results that look extraordinary in hindsight. If this resonates, pause later and reflect. Is your financial life dependent on your constant attention, or does it work without you thinking about it? The second is the goal. In the final chapter, we'll close this journey, not with hype, but with clarity. How to commit to this path, not for a month, not for a year, but for the kind of timeline that actually builds wealth. This is where simplicity becomes a lifelong advantage. Chapter 10. Why simple wealth feels slow and why that's the point. If you're being honest with yourself, this path might feel underwhelming. No shortcuts, no dramatic breakthroughs, no overnight transformations, just repetition, restraint, patience. And that's exactly why it works. Most people abandon the simple path because it doesn't feel powerful in the beginning. It feels quiet. And humans mistake quiet for weakness. But silence is where momentum hides. The simple way to get rich feels slow because it refuses to stimulate your ego. There's no rush of validation, no applause, no social proof. You're doing the same things while others look like they're moving faster. Bigger purchases, riskier bets, more visible progress. And for a while, it looks like they're winning. This is the psychological test. Can you keep doing the right thing when it doesn't look impressive? Because wealth is not built in public moments. It's built in private consistency. The simple path delays gratification so deeply that most people can't tolerate it. They need feedback. They need proof. They need reassurance. Wealth doesn't provide those early. It asks for faith in process. Faith not in hope, but in math, in probability, in behavior repeated long enough. Here's a truth few people admit. Most people don't fail financially because they make bad decisions. They fail because they abandon good ones too early. They stop saving when it feels pointless. They stop investing when returns feel small. They stop being disciplined when temptation appears. The simple path asks you to endure boredom. Boredom is not emptiness. Boredom is stability without stimulation. And stability is fertile ground. Nothing flashy grows there, but everything strong does. Trees don't grow loudly. Roots grow first, deep, invisible, patient. By the time growth is visible, it's already irreversible. This is what simple wealth looks like. No drama, no urgency, no panic, just quiet accumulation. Most people want proof before commitment. Wealth demands commitment before proof. That's the trade. If you're feeling restless right now, that's normal. Restlessness is the ego asking for attention. The simple path ignores it, not aggressively, calmly. You don't fight impulses. You outlast them. This is why wealthy people appear calm. They're not calm because they're rich. They're rich because they learn to stay calm while doing boring things consistently. Let this settle. In the next part, we'll talk about identity, how your self-image either supports or sabotages wealth, because no financial system survives an identity that contradicts it. Chapter 11. Identity. You don't rise above who you think you are. Money follows identity, not motivation, not intelligence, not opportunity. Identity. Your financial behavior is simply your self-image in motion. You don't save consistently because of spreadsheets. You save because you see yourself as someone who plans ahead. You don't invest patiently because of charts. You invest patiently because you believe you are a long-term thinker. And when identity and behavior conflict, identity always wins. This is why so many people self-sabotage progress. They earn more, then spend more. They save, then undo it. They invest, then panic and sell. Not because they're irresponsible, because their identity hasn't caught up. They still see themselves as someone who never has money, someone who's bad with finances, someone who's just not lucky. So when progress appears, it feels unfamiliar, uncomfortable, and humans instinctively return to what feels familiar, even if it hurts. The simple path to wealth requires an identity shift, quiet, internal, unannounced. You stop saying, "I'm trying to be better with money," and start living as, "I'm the kind of person who doesn't complicate wealth." This shift is subtle, but it changes everything. Wealthy people don't wake up each day deciding to be disciplined. They act in alignment with who they believe they are. They see themselves as planners, owners, builders, long-term thinkers. So their actions follow naturally. Here's the mistake most people make. They try to change behavior first. Behavior collapses under pressure. Identity holds. The simple path works when identity changes quietly first. You don't announce it. You don't perform it. You embody it. You choose simplicity not as sacrifice, but as preference. You decline unnecessary upgrades not because you should, but because you don't need them to feel successful. You invest not to feel smart, but because that's what people like you do. This is how wealth becomes stable. When discipline feels like effort, it eventually breaks. When discipline feels like alignment, it lasts. Ask yourself this honestly: who am I becoming with my financial decisions? Not who you want to be, not who you pretend to be, who your actions say you are. That answer explains your results. The good news? Identity is not fixed. It's trained. Every small decision reinforces a story. Save once, you become someone who saves. Invest once, you become someone who invests. Delay gratification once, you become someone who waits. The story strengthens. The behavior stabilizes. Wealth becomes natural. In the next part, we'll talk about patience under pressure. What happens when life tests your system? Because wealth is not built in calm periods, it's protected during chaos. And how you respond there determines everything. Chapter 12. Patience under pressure. When life tests your system. Dear viewer, please write in the comments what interested you most in the video. This will help us improve our videos. Anyone can be disciplined when life is calm, when income is steady, when markets are rising, when nothing unexpected happens. That's not the test. The test arrives quietly and then all at once. A job loss, a market downturn, an emergency expense, a moment of fear that whispers, "Abandon the plan." This is where most financial systems fail, not because they were wrong, but because they weren't trusted. Pressure exposes belief. If you don't truly believe in your system, you will override it the moment fear appears. Wealth is not built by avoiding pressure. It's built by holding steady inside it. This is why simplicity matters. Complex systems collapse under stress. Too many decisions, too many variables, too much emotion. Simple systems survive. They give you fewer choices, and that's a strength. Under pressure, fewer choices mean fewer mistakes. Wealthy people don't panic faster than others. They panic less often because they prepared for this moment. They expected disruption. They assumed volatility. They built margin on purpose. Margin buys patience. Patience prevents destruction. Most people don't fail because they made the wrong move. They fail because they made any move. They acted to relieve discomfort. Discomfort is temporary. Bad decisions are permanent. The simple path teaches you to tolerate uncertainty, to sit with it, to let the storm pass without rearranging your life. Markets recover, careers recover, income recovers. But only if you're still standing. This is why emergency funds matter. Not as a financial tool, but as a psychological one. They give you space, space to think clearly, space to avoid panic, space to stay invested when others are fleeing. Clarity is rare under stress. Prepared people have it. Unprepared people borrow it at a high cost. Here's a powerful truth. The purpose of wealth is not to eliminate stress. It's to prevent stress from forcing bad decisions. The simple path does not promise ease, it promises resilience. Resilience compounds. People who survive downturns intact benefit disproportionately from recoveries. Those who panic reset to zero. Time punishes interruption. It rewards endurance. If you've ever felt tempted to do something just to feel in control, remember this. Sometimes the smartest move is to do nothing. Stillness is not inaction. It's confidence in your preparation. In the next part, we'll explore comparison, the invisible force that quietly pulls people off the path. Because even strong systems fail when identity is hijacked by someone else's life. Chapter 13. Comparison. How other people quietly steal your wealth. Comparison is not harmless. It is one of the most expensive habits you can have. Not because it makes you unhappy, but because it makes you impatient. Impatience changes behavior, and behavior determines wealth. Most people don't abandon the simple path because it stops working. They abandon it because someone else appears to be ahead. A friend buys a bigger house. A colleague upgrades their lifestyle. Someone online flashes success, and suddenly your calm system feels inadequate. Comparison whispers, you're falling behind. So you rush. You upgrade early. You invest emotionally. You stretch expenses. You chase momentum that isn't yours. And quietly, your advantage disappears. Wealthy people are not immune to comparison. They're just disciplined about ignoring it. They understand a critical truth. You don't see other people's full balance sheet. You see the rewards, not the risks. You see consumption, not leverage. You see outcomes, not anxiety. Comparison focuses on surface signals. Wealth is built below the surface. The simple path demands internal validation. You don't measure progress by appearances. You measure it by declining stress, growing margin, increasing optionality. Those metrics aren't visible. That's why comparison is dangerous. It values what's seen over what lasts. Here's another truth. Most visible success is financed. It looks impressive early and expensive later. Wealthy people don't compete in that arena. They opt out entirely. They choose a quieter race, one where the finish line is freedom, not applause. This requires humility. You accept that you will look behind before you end up ahead. You accept that your life may appear boring before it becomes unshakable. This humility is rare. Most people would rather look successful now than be free later. The simple path makes the opposite trade, and it pays off slowly, then all at once. If you find yourself tempted to compare, ask this: am I comparing outcomes or processes? Processes matter. Outcomes lie. Someone spending more than you may be running toward stress. Someone earning less than you may be closer to freedom. Comparison has no context. Your plan does. Stay loyal to it. In the next part, we'll talk about contentment, not as complacency, but as a strategic advantage, because dissatisfaction fuels consumption, and consumption is the fastest way to delay wealth. Chapter 14, Contentment, the most underrated wealth strategy. Contentment is misunderstood. People think it means settling, giving up ambition, lowering standards. It doesn't. Contentment means you are no longer financially manipulated by dissatisfaction. That distinction matters. Dissatisfaction is expensive. It pushes people to upgrade before they're ready, to spend to soothe emotions, to buy symbols instead of security. Contentment breaks that cycle. Wealthy people are not endlessly craving more. They are selective. They choose what actually improves their lives and ignore the rest. This selectivity protects wealth. Here's the paradox. The more content you are, the less money controls you. And the less money controls you, the easier it is to build wealth. Desire is infinite. Resources are not. The simple path teaches you to cap desire intentionally, not by force, by clarity. You ask, what genuinely adds value to my life? What drains it? What am I buying for relief instead of usefulness? Those questions reshape spending automatically. Contentment doesn't kill ambition. It refines it. Instead of wanting everything, you want enough. Enough time, enough flexibility, enough security. And once enough is defined, everything beyond it becomes optional. Optional spending is safe spending. Obligatory spending is dangerous. Most people confuse happiness with stimulation. New purchases create stimulation, briefly. Then baseline returns, the craving returns, and the cycle repeats. Wealthy people step off this treadmill early. They understand hedonic adaptation is real. Financial pressure lasts longer than novelty. So they optimize for peace, not excitement. Peace supports patience. Patience builds wealth. Here's something subtle. Contentment reduces urgency. Urgency causes mistakes. When you're content, you don't rush investments. You don't stretch budgets. You don't chase hype. You wait. Waiting is powerful. Waiting lets information surface. Waiting lets emotions cool. Waiting lets compounding continue uninterrupted. The simple path depends on waiting, not passively, strategically. If this resonates, pause later and ask yourself, what purchase am I postponing? Not because I can't afford it, but because I don't actually need it. That pause is wealth forming. In the next part, we'll talk about risk, not how to avoid it, but how to take it intelligently. Because wealth doesn't require recklessness. It requires understanding what kind of risk actually pays. Chapter 15, Risk, Why Smart Wealth Avoids Drama. Most people misunderstand risk. They think risk is boldness, speed, big moves. It's not. Risk is exposure without preparation. Wealthy people do not avoid risk. They avoid unnecessary risk. There's a difference. Unnecessary risk looks exciting. It promises fast results. It feeds ego. Necessary risk is quieter. It's calculated, measured, aligned with long-term goals. The simple path to wealth is not risk-free. It's risk-aware. You take risks that are diversified, repeatable, survivable. Survivability is the key word. Any strategy that can wipe you out is not a strategy. It's a gamble. Wealth compounds only when you stay in the game. Wealthy people prioritize staying power. They ask, what's the worst-case scenario? Can I survive it? Will this decision still make sense in 10 years? If the answer is no, they pass. They don't fear missing out. They fear being forced out. This is why leverage is dangerous when misused. Leverage magnifies outcomes, but also magnifies mistakes. The simple path uses leverage sparingly, if at all. It values durability over acceleration. Acceleration feels good. Durability wins. Most people take risks emotionally. They invest because others are excited. They buy because prices are rising. They commit because they don't want to feel left out. Emotion-driven risk is unpredictable. Predictability is what allows compounding. Wealthy people take boring risks, long-term investments, steady businesses, skills that grow over decades. Nothing dramatic, nothing heroic, just repeatable exposure over time. This is another paradox. The risks that build wealth rarely feel risky. They feel slow. And because they feel slow, most people ignore them. They underestimate them until years later, when the results are undeniable. The simple path avoids drama. Drama creates stress. Stress creates mistakes. Mistakes interrupt time. Time is the engine. Protect the engine. If this resonates, pause later and ask yourself, is this risk increasing my chances of staying in the game or increasing my chances of being knocked out? The answer clarifies everything. In the next part, we'll talk about self-trust, the quiet confidence that keeps people consistent when no one is watching. Because wealth is not built in moments of inspiration. It's built when motivation disappears. Chapter 16, Self-Trust, the skill that makes wealth stick. At some point, motivation disappears. Not dramatically, not all at once. It just fades. The excitement of starting is gone. The novelty is worn off. The results are still distant. This is where most people drift, not because they quit intentionally, but because they stop trusting themselves. They second-guess plans. They override systems. They chase reassurance. Wealth does not survive that phase. Wealth requires self-trust, not blind confidence, earned confidence. The kind built by keeping small promises to yourself. Self-trust forms when you do what you said you would do long after the feeling is gone. Save when it's boring. Invest when it's uneventful. Hold when it's uncomfortable. Each follow-through strengthens identity. Identity stabilizes behavior. Behavior builds wealth. Most people look for external validation, charts, experts, opinions, but the most valuable signal is internal. Can I trust myself not to sabotage this? Wealthy people answer yes, because they've proven it repeatedly. They don't constantly renegotiate their plan. They commit and then let time work. This is why constant tweaking is dangerous. Tweaking feels productive. It feels smart. But most of the time, it's just anxiety disguised as action. The simple path values consistency over optimization. Optimization can come later. Consistency must come first. Here's a hard truth. If you don't trust yourself, no strategy will save you. You'll override it under stress. You'll abandon it under boredom. You'll distort it under comparison. Self-trust is what keeps systems intact. How do you build it? You start small. You choose rules you can keep, not extreme rules, not impressive rules, honest rules. I invest every month no matter what. I don't inflate my lifestyle when income rises. I don't react to headlines. Each time you honor the rule, self-trust grows. And with self-trust comes calm. Calm creates patience. Patience compounds. This is why wealthy people feel steady. They're not guessing anymore. They know who they are. They know how they respond. They know their system works because they work with it. If this resonates, pause later and ask yourself, which promise to myself have I been quietly breaking? That's not a judgment. It's a starting point. In the next part, we'll talk about long horizons, why thinking in decades changes every decision you make. Because wealth is not built by urgency, it's built by perspective. Chapter 17, Long Horizons. Thinking in decades changes everything. Most financial mistakes are not caused by ignorance. They're caused by short timelines. People want results this year, this quarter, this month. And when reality doesn't comply, they change direction. Wealth cannot survive that pace. Wealth requires long horizons. When you think in decades, urgency disappears. And with urgency gone, decision-making improves instantly. Short-term thinking asks, what will this do for me now? Long-term thinking asks, what will this look like in 10 years if repeated? That single shift filters everything: a purchase, an investment, a career move, a lifestyle decision. You stop asking if something feels good today. You ask if it ages well. Wealth is built by decisions that age well. Most flashy choices don't. They peak early and cost later. Long horizons favor boring choices. Saving steadily, investing consistently, living below your means even when you don't have to. These choices feel small now. They feel obvious later. Wealthy people don't try to predict the future. They position themselves to benefit from it. They assume markets will fluctuate, careers will change, life will surprise them, so they build flexibility. Flexibility is a long horizon advantage. People trapped in short-term thinking build rigidity. Rigid systems break. Flexible systems adapt. This is why wealth compounds. Not because the world becomes predictable, but because your system becomes resilient. Thinking long-term also softens setbacks. A bad year doesn't feel catastrophic when you're playing a 30-year game. Losses become noise. Noise fades. Direction remains. Here's a powerful truth. You don't need to get rich fast. You need to avoid getting poor slowly. Most people lose wealth gradually, through small leaks, through impatience, through lifestyle creep. Long horizon thinking catches leaks early. It protects trajectory. Wealth is not about speed. It's about direction maintained long enough. If this resonates, pause later and ask yourself, would I still be happy with this decision if I repeated it every year for the next 10 years? If the answer is no, it doesn't belong on the simple path. In the next part, we'll explore legacy thinking, not inheritance, but how building wealth responsibly changes how you see responsibility itself. Because wealth, when done right, expands your impact, not just your balance. Chapter 18. The simple way is a decision, not a discovery. At this point, there is nothing left to reveal. No secret strategy, no hidden formula, no missing piece. You already know the simple way to get rich. The only question left is whether you will live it. Because simplicity is not something you find. It's something you choose again and again when no one is watching. You choose it when spending would feel easier than restraint. Quitting would feel more exciting than consistency. Comparison would feel more comforting than patience. The simple way asks for maturity, not perfection, maturity. The willingness to delay pleasure for peace. The willingness to look ordinary to become free. The willingness to repeat boring decisions until they compound into extraordinary outcomes. Most people don't fail because they don't know what to do. They fail because they want results without the waiting. But waiting is not wasted time. Waiting is where alignment proves itself. This book was never about getting rich fast. It was about getting rich right. Rich in time, rich in options, rich in calm. Money is just the scoreboard. Freedom is the prize. If you walk away with one truth, let it be this: financial freedom is built by boring decisions repeated for years. Not once, not occasionally. Repeated. And you don't need to change everything today. You just need to stop sabotaging the system. You simplify expenses. You automate saving. You invest consistently. You resist lifestyle inflation. You think in decades. You protect peace. That's the path. It doesn't impress crowds. It doesn't trend online. But it works. Quietly, reliably, relentlessly. Years from now, someone may ask how you did it. And your answer will sound disappointingly simple. I didn't chase more. I needed less. And I stayed consistent. That answer will confuse them because simplicity is rare, and rarity always looks like luck from the outside. If this audiobook gave you clarity, not excitement, clarity, make a personal contract with yourself. Not to be perfect, but to stay on the simple path even when nothing dramatic is happening. If you want to reinforce that commitment, leave a comment with one sentence. What simple decision will I repeat? And if you want to continue building quietly, subscribe. Not for motivation, but for alignment. Finally, tell us, what should the next audiobook explore? Discipline, focus, emotional control, identity, or long-term thinking? Because the quieter your decisions become, the louder your freedom will speak later. And